peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Our television station gives people to explain their problems, their difficulties, their information. If they need more information, we shall refer them to where they should get it.
We embrace dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue.
We want to exchange views, go deeper, advise where possible. Tell the world what is going on. Why is it that tactics have changed from removing governments militarily to removing governments through regime change tactics?
The issues here sometimes are elections in Africa. We as Kenyans or we as Africans view it as elections, but the foreign powers are viewing it as an entry strategy to enter into our affairs and get control of our resources and on the way we actually rule ourselves.
At the end of the day, I think it's just the greed of power that is bringing all these problems, even the Western influence that you're talking about, because you cannot accept to be used by Western powers unless there is a reason, and the reason is that you want to get power through any means, even if it means bringing a country or a nation down to its knees.
It is very shameful today for an African country to go and beg money for elections in its own country. It is very shameful. And then tomorrow you ask for the same people. Why are they asking for the record of your elections? Look at that. Kenyans, unite. And institutions in the world that don't benefit Kenyans, why do you keep yourself in them? There are those who think that with ICC gone away, we shall lack justice in Africa. No. Has justice not been there in Africa before? It has. Some people want to silence people. We are not going to keep quiet. France, watch your steps in Africa. You are dividing people in the African Union. If countries don't tell you, I am an individual, I've told you. The president, Salva Kiir, is the president of the Republic of South Sudan.
So that should be respected.
Dr. Riek Machar, before he left,
was the vice president.
So therefore the two must now avoid these blue-suited men and talk for the sake of their country.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning into Punchline Africa TV. Time now for Africa Matters. Today, or this afternoon, we are handling Cameroon. The genocide in Cameroon. Is President Paul Biya untouchable? That is the question we would like you to engage with us. Of course, I have a panel in studio that I will be actually introducing in a short while. We would like to know, a lot of atrocities have been happening for over a year now in Cameroon. And of course, the southern Cameroonians have been crying and asking for justice. They've been asking for a restoration of what they call their republic. But no one seems to listen. The world is silent. That is what we would like to hear from you. Engage with us through our social media platforms. Facebook is Punchline Africa TV. Instagram, Punchline Africa. Twitter account is Punchline Africa. Also, you can use our hotline number, +254 795 638 145. And of course, we'll be glad to sample your views as we continue with the program. Welcome, my name is Samuel Tausch. Let me now introduce the panel in studio. On my immediate left is Babu Biko, a senior presenter at Punchline Africa TV. Welcome.
Thank you.
I also have with me, of course, the only lady in the panel this afternoon to decipher matters Cameroon and most of the genocide in Cameroon. She's been part and parcel of most of the discussions we've been having here at Punchline Africa TV as regards to Cameroon genocide. Esther Mackenzie, a senior anchor and presenter at Punchline Africa TV as well. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon.
Well, Esther Mackenzie and Babu Biko, we've talked and said so much about Cameroon. There's been a lot of cry for justice, and nobody seems to listen. Nobody seems to give an ear. Or there's been no response at all, especially from the international community, from the regional organs, talking about the African Union, ECOWAS, and others. No one seems to give an ear to what exactly is happening in Cameroon, despite the fact that the people of southern Cameroon have been crying for justice. They've been saying the internet has been shut down, they cannot go to school. I mean, the police are brutally murdering individuals, innocent civilians in the southern Cameroon, and a lot more that is happening over there. Let me begin with you, Babu Biko. Do you suppose President Paul Biya is untouchable? Let's begin from there.
My personal feeling is that he has made himself seem untouchable. If you're in power for 42 years, of course you're going to make sure you have loyalists. You're going to make sure that the people who you're putting in charge of security, in charge of information, those are people you can easily tell them in the morning that, you know what, you need to quickly get something or maybe get this done as quickly as possible, and they will do it. And this we have seen as one of the major causes of, or one of the major contributors of dictatorship in the African continent. So for me, I think Paul Biya has made himself untouchable, but if we actually put enough pressure on him, we can actually save the Cameroonian people. You've mentioned some of the bodies that have been placed there, ECOWAS and AU, and it goes back to the argument that, if you actually realize, when we talk about Zimbabwe and the Commonwealth, a lot of viewers came forth and said that, you know what, the Commonwealth is not really helping, it's not stepping in to help solve, but the mandate of the Commonwealth is not to interfere in your conflicts or in your wars. It's supposed to create trade blocks and whatnot. So Africans need to start realizing, or our leaders need to start realizing, that these economic bodies do not protect you in times of conflict. They're like groups in schools, those small groups you form. Once you're in trouble with the teacher, nobody is going to come there and say, cane all four of us because we're in one group. What people need to have, or what Africa or what Cameroon is right now, is for a few presidents to stand up to Paul Biya, a few presidents to call him out. It needs a few people to tell him what is happening in Cameroon cannot happen in the African continent. And this begins with stopping him. Why can't African countries put sanctions on him? You don't need to wait for Europe and USA. Stop him from going and addressing summits. You still see him walking around and greeting people. The fact that he can come and start greeting other leaders in Africa, it basically means other leaders in Africa are also creating a carte blanche for him to operate. They're basically sanctifying what is happening in Cameroon. So we actually need to start with our own countries, starting from the countries in West Africa, Chad, Central African Republic, everybody around him, Nigeria, Ghana, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, Gambia. They all need to stand up and call Paul Biya on this, call him out.
Well, let me hear from Esther Mackenzie. You've heard Babu Biko's sentiments as far as that is concerned. I just want to get from you as well, Mackenzie. Do you suppose Paul Biya is untouchable? Looking at the very many happenings in Cameroon, cry for justice. It's not like maybe the media is not talking about it. We at Punchline Africa TV have talked about what is happening in Cameroon for almost a year now, but nobody seems to give an ear. No action is being taken, especially on President Paul Biya. Is this man untouchable?
Wow. I think I want to share the sentiments that Babu Biko has said, that he has just made himself seem untouchable, but there is no one who is not touchable. Remember the case of Robert Mugabe. Everyone thought that he was going to stay in power as long as he wanted, but he was overthrown without actually anyone expecting that to happen. So the issue of Paul Biya being untouchable, I don't really think so. I think it's just that maybe the people around him are in support of what he's doing, and maybe now the citizens and the people who feel aggravated that they don't have the right mechanisms and the right ways in which they can maybe try to get Paul Biya out of power. But of course, we say there's nothing powerful like the determined a crowd. So I think to say Paul Biya is untouchable is kind of being overrated. But we are wait and see how things are going to pan out. But of course, being a president, he should understand that he is a president of everyone. He should not feel like he is untouchable, as you're putting it. He was elected by people to be in office to serve them, not to be untouchable. Yeah.
When we talk about Paul Biya being untouchable, or with this assertion, that probably is untouchable, because maybe the innocent civilians who do not wield the instruments of power in Cameroon cannot do as much. But we have regional bodies, for example, like the African Union, which has to ensure, first of all, security for the people of African continent. When you get certain kind of things happening, for example, in Cameroon as we speak today, and the African Union is silent on that, I mean, what could be the problem? Why is it that they're not saying anything? There are no sanctions like Babu Biko is trying to put it. The UN itself, the UN Security Council, they are not talking about the atrocities, the genocide, the killing of innocent people, the brutality that is being meted on the innocent civilians of the southern Cameroon. Now, Babu Biko, is it because we do not have strength, or we have not strengthened our institutions, in this case the African Union, or where is the problem specifically?
Let me just address the African Union and the United Nations. The African Union, first of all, its funding is not from African countries, which is, I think, the most ironic statement that an African in Africa can make. What they do is basically they will get involved in interests which have interests for them. I don't know whether that made sense. Such that if you look at why they will quickly intervene in a country like DRC, is because they have a lot of minerals and a lot of oil in which they can make money.
Yeah.
In regards to the United Nations, I think for the most part, if you look at the interventions that they have, for instance, let's just take a case of Rwanda in 1994, the genocide. Kofi Annan came out 10 years later to say he regretted not acting. You understand? In a General Assembly of the United Nations in 2004, Kofi Annan came out and said he regretted not acting quicker. He was in charge of the troops at that time. He should have sent them in to try and alleviate. And if he acted quicker, you understand, the casualties will not have been as high as they were. So you're asking yourself, if such was the report given in 2004, we're in 2017, how come nobody goes back to the precedent set by Kofi Annan and say, you know what, my predecessor did not act well in such a situation, and this got out of hand. A lot of people are dying in southern Cameroon. Somebody needs to quickly go in and intervene. And just as a final point, also, the mediators and negotiators really need to start taking an active role in the way that they're addressing. Because right now, it's over a year. We've built enough scenarios. We have come up with a lot of crisis prevention mechanisms, but the execution is not there. You understand? Yeah. There is no execution in trying to help. It's one thing to write, the people of southern Cameroon need troops. You understand? Or need to be protected. It's another thing to go in and try to make this intervention. So if you're going to circle around southern Cameroon and do nothing about it, Paul Biya is going to feel invincible. He's going to feel, you know what, or if you come into a country, we're going to say we're a sovereign nation, we have the right to make our own rules. But in the UN Charter and the AU Charter, I think there is a provision, I can't remember the specific one, which says that in crisis, we will intervene. Yeah. Where are they? Yes.
Is it because the crisis has not gotten to a level
It's
that
absolutely
can trigger
terrifying.
that intervention?
Believe you me, if this is not the level which it can trigger, then I'm afraid of what level. At what level does it really trigger? That's my fear. Because right now, look at the videos, look at the photos, look at the complaints. Before we came on air, we actually tried to get one person from southern Cameroon, whose name now we can't even mention for security reasons, to try and give us some information. And they said he's not feeling adequately safe to talk to us about this. Perhaps he can give us a number on somebody in the United States of America to talk to us. That speaks volumes of a country whose internet is under survey. Some areas have been shut down, all because you speak one language that another person does not speak.
Mackenzie, your view on that?
All right, I think the government is just turning a blind eye on what is happening. Maybe they feel that it has not reached that level where we can say now that is a crisis. I think they're just ignoring and thinking maybe these are insurgents, these are radicals, and maybe we can just deal with them using the military, which seems not to be working so far, because I think these Ambazonians have really just got empowered by the killing of their people. And it's quite worrying when Paul Biya and the government and the international agencies continue keeping quiet as to what is happening. Probably they're waiting when it becomes full-blown, and that is when they can now maybe start reacting, when it could be a little too late. So it's kind of hard to really understand what Paul Biya is thinking and the government, because when you look at the silence and even the regional bodies, the silence they have given, maybe someone would want to see it has not reached that level where it needs maybe attention, according to those people. But the people of southern Cameroon feel that they should be recognized. What is happening should be spoken about by international agencies, by the media, not only in Cameroon, but of course here in Africa. So I think maybe that is time bomb in waiting, because this uprising could gain momentum and eventually affect the whole country, not only even in South Cameroon, to go and affect even the Francophone. So I think the better Paul Biya and the government acts and tries to find a solution in this, then the better for him.
Well, there's now an emergence of a tradition or a norm in the African continent, more so, when people attempt to agitate for what they believe is rightfully rather theirs. They're being branded or called names, like it's like they have formed an illegal group. They are called terrorists, for example, because they are agitating for what they believe is theirs. In this case, for example, the Ambazonia or the Southern Cameroon, they are only or simply agitating for a restoration of what they call the republic, which they were given in 1961. And now when you look at how Paul Biya's administration or regime is trying to reign on these people, they have been branded as terrorists. They have been branded as illegal grouping that maybe is trying to or threatening to bring down Paul Biya's regime. I don't know if it is becoming really a tradition in the continent of Africa, and how can we deal with it? Because again, that is not only unique in Cameroon as we speak today. Any kind of grouping or any kind of individuals who come out to agitate for what they think is theirs or rightfully theirs, they are branded names. They are called terrorists, just in a bid to silence them. For example, you remember what the former leader in Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, spoke about Somalia, that some of the leaders or the international community went to Somalia to actually take away the wealth in Somalia, the waters, the fishing industry, and every other natural resources that is in Somalia that would have otherwise benefited the natives in Somalia. And then when these people began agitating for their resources, they were branded terrorists. And it's what probably is killing Somalia up to date. And that's why probably we are not getting a solution to the instability in Somalia. So I don't know if this has become a norm. Biko, I start with you. And how can it be dealt with? That anyone who comes out to speak about their rights, to speak about what they believe is rightfully theirs, they are branded names, they are called terrorists.
When you have control over information, you have one of the most powerful tools in your hand. And this, like you said, this is not unique, because I remember Blaise Compaoré did that in Burkina Faso, Yaya Jammeh did that in Gambia, and this all boils down to even Adolf Hitler. And it started with Alexander the Great,
Yeah.
because he realized if the Christian church comes in with their religion, these people are going to take over and they will take over everything. So what do? Brand them as terrorists. What that does is you make sure the people who are aligned to you, which in Cameroon I would think are the Francophones, you make sure that they live in fear of the terrorists. Then you convince them you're the only one who can protect them from these terrorists. And once people live in fear, once you can control how they feel, how they think, you can get them to do anything. You understand? So the thing I think that Paul Biya has applied so far is convincing people that he creates fear such that they feel he's the only one who can solve that. He has economic power in terms of controlling the economy, because what you can do in such a crisis is reduce the commodities such that people will still need. All you need to do is keep the people in need and then control the information reaching other people. Because if we sit here right now, I don't think there's clear information as to what is happening in southern Cameroon from the southern Cameroon media or from the Cameroon media itself, not even southern
Because
Cameroon.
they've been gagged. They are limited.
Exactly. So if you can control the information, that I think precisely why I think the reaction has been very subtle from other African countries. Because again, you can't also walk into a war and you're not even sure how many people are dying or what is happening. So those three pillars are what most leaders use. You need the people to be dependent on you, and fear is actually quite a powerful tool to use when you're a leader, and that is why most people would prefer news to start with something sad or something that will make you angry. If we go for 1 month and everything is happening on news is something good, everybody is going to start living a very comfortable life. People are not going to depend on the government. People are going to be creative in the way they can do some problem solving. But if you keep people dependent and fearful and you control the information that goes to them, you're going to control them.
Mackenzie, is the branding of these groups as terrorists, as illegal groupings, has it become a powerful tool, especially in the African continent, to a point that is now being used as a tool to silence a voice of dissent?
Right. I think you would want to categorize such leaders with the dictators, because I only believe it's dictators who would want to brand people terrorists once they start talking about the injustices that they are facing from the government. So that clearly shows you there is a problem with the leadership of that country, not only looking at the reasons why they are being branded terrorists and why, of course, they are being called names. It points to an underlying problem that affects both the government and as well as the citizens of that country. So I think, yes, it could be maybe an escape route that leaders are using, especially dictators, that they are using, so that they can, of course, try to paint themselves to be the holy ones, to paint themselves as to be good people, and paint themselves to be, of course, leading the country in the right direction, whereas they are not. So yes, it could be a tool that is being used by some of the rogue leaders we have in the African continent.
Well, thank you so much, Mackenzie and Babu Biko. Let me just, but just before I go through your comments, just to remind you, our viewer, and anyone who would like to donate to this program and more of our programming here at Punchline Africa TV, our PayPal account for donations is punchlineafricatv@gmail.com. Once more, our PayPal account for donations is punchlineafricatv@gmail.com. So whoever would like to make a contribution or any donation to Punchline Africa TV, through, of course, that means can use that account, punchlineafricatv@gmail.com. We truly appreciate your responses and your continued support. And let me just go through some of the comments some of you have made here on social media, especially on our Facebook. My people are all in Nigeria now as refugees for the fear of being killed. That is Becky Godwin. Hamza Truman says, we have lost a lot, so we are not ready to lose again. And then another one says, Endo Sinorita says, on point, sir, that is exactly what Southern Cameroon Ambazonians are going through. And then we have Nju Carlos says, respect to you guys, Punchline Africa TV, for reporting on behalf of the Southern Cameroonian on the ongoing genocide in the Southern Cameroon. Well spoken, sir. That is Becky once more. And then her Deep Kelvin Slim says, this is real journalism. Africa needs this. And then we have another one who goes by the name Kemita Ashu, says 65% of GDP comes from Ambazonia, yet they live in abject poverty. They have been left to their devices for 57 years. No facilities, no roads, nothing, but just to say but a few. And then Dominic Onu says, Hamza Truman, defend yourselves with anything you can. Lay your hands while waiting for your leaders to rescue you. Of course, those are some of the comments you're making over there. Is our audience, we just want to remind you that you can as well be part of this conversation by sending in your comments through our social media platforms. Facebook, Punchline Africa TV, Instagram, Punchline Africa, Twitter account is Punchline Africa. Also, you can use our hotline number. You can call in live. +254 795 638 145 is our hotline number. Call us live and tell us what you think about the genocide in Cameroon. That is what we are discussing this afternoon on Africa Matters right here at Punchline Africa TV. We are taking a short commercial break, but don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Multiple Solutions Limited, a fully licensed air operator in Kenya that handles clearing and forwarding of cargo in and out of the East African corridor. With our latest cargo plane, Boeing B737-200 series aircraft, we will give you a world-class personalized and timely experience in delivery of goods across the African continent and the Middle East region.
Is for France to back off. They should leave our own system. We have a proper means to organize our educational system. We have proper means of our health system. It's a time for freedom. They colonized us, and now is the time. We were mental slaves, but now is the time we are spiritually positive. And the fight is bigger than they can think. The fight is bigger than they can think. Now is the time.
We want to take this show very seriously about Matsanga Africa Perspective. It's the only show that we speak with frankness, with very calculative, we are decisive, we are very, what can I tell you? Matsanga Africa Perspective, therefore, wants to show the people of Africa that we cannot keep quiet about the ills of foreign instigated chaos. Cameroon is a colony of the French. The French have maintained grip on Cameroon.
Freedom now. Freedom now. Southern Cameroonians who are the owners of this land understand it. And that is why the clamor now is for nothing but independence.
And I want you Cameroonians, wherever you are now, come back. I've come back on your subject. I have done it in Gambia. Mr. Adama Barrow is ruling, is leading, although he's now leaning more of the French advice, he will be overthrown very soon because he has forgotten where he came from. It is our television station that gave the Gambians the will to speak, the will to talk, the will to do everything in the world. Yaya Jammeh had closed everything for them, opened the channels for them. Unlike the Biafran issue, which we know is pumped in by fuel, oil. Actually, this one also is oil, because the southern part is the one that produces more oil than, you see how God makes things very difficult. You see, the place that minority, the southern part, where Biya wants so much, is where the black gold is. So Biya there says he rather dies there fighting than giving them independence.
Either they give us a federation, which means that the Anglophone population will have their own parliament. They will have a prime minister, and the same thing will be for the Francophone population, and they will live together. We can elect our mayor, we elect our governor, and we stay together. If they don't want to give us that, then they should allow us go let Anglophones go their way and form their own state. Let Francophones stay in La République.
Our grievances have to do with the fact that the government is training and sending Francophone teachers to teach Anglophone children. And to us, the word we use is that they unteach the children, they destroy the children, because they teach them in a language that is neither English nor French.
There has been clampdown in the southwest region from Friday morning to Monday morning, which entails a curfew, which takes effect from 9 p.m. up to the morning. The closure of sea and land borders, suspension of transport for the English-speaking people, public meetings of more than 4 people not allowed. Mr. Biya, you are in trouble. We are coming for you. Cameroon is split between English and French-speaking. Those in English-speaking place have nothing to say. They have nothing to eat. They can't go to school. They can't have telephone services. They can't have internet services. They can't have banking services. Oh my God! That is an old stone-aged ruler by name Paul Biya.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for watching. Just to remind you that you can be part of this conversation by engaging us through our social media platforms. Facebook, as always, is Punchline Africa TV. Instagram, Punchline Africa. Twitter account is Punchline Africa. Also, like I told you, you can call us live. Our hotline number is +254 795 638 145. Call us live and tell us what you think about the genocide in Cameroon, more so in the southern Cameroon. There are those of you who like to be part of this programming at Punchline Africa TV. You would like to make your donation. Of course, you can make it through our PayPal account for that donation, punchlineafricatv@gmail.com. Once more, our PayPal account for donation is punchlineafricatv@gmail.com. We truly appreciate your support, your continued support in ensuring that we continue to bring you these programs. Once more, let me just go through some of the comments that are coming in here as we continue. Silva Alberto, he says, I'm on board. They tried many times to hack my account so that I shouldn't be giving information, telling the truth, what's going on in Ambazonia as Paul Biya massacres Ambazonians. Very unfortunate there. Manyang Jr. says, God bless Southern Cameroon Ambazonians. Silva Alberto says, Paul Biya is the president of Cameroon, not the president of Ambazonia. Then we have another one who goes by the name Blessed Fonje, says, is it Blessed Fonje or Fonj? Says, my beloved daddy Tasang. I don't know if he's in reference to Masanga, or I can't quite get that. And then we have John Simao Morgan says, we Southern Cameroonians are not turning back. We can never live together with this evil La République de Cameroon. And then we have another one says, Tata Sani says, France, which is a veto member in the Security Council, is corrupting the United Nations not to acknowledge the genocide roaming the southern Cameroon counties. Kingsley Bewike says Paul Biya should the genocide and allow the genocide Ambazonia to have their freedom. I mean the genocide, stop the genocide and allow Ambazonia to have their freedom. I think that is what he means over there. Kingsley, and then we have Nyangaji Emile says God bless Ambazonia. So many comments coming in. Of course, we'll continue going through them as we continue with the program. Remember to send them. Indicate also your name and location. We'll be glad to sample your views as we continue with this program. Back to my panel in studio, Esther Mackenzie and Babu Biko. My question to you, the UN, is it time for the UN to intervene? And as you answer that, the aspect of sanctions. Is it time then to issue sanctions against Paul Biya and his administration? I start with you, Babu Biko.
Yes, I think the UN is a bit late. They should really embrace the fact that they need to intervene because a lot of people are looking up to them. My only crisis would come is if they intervene with a lot of, if the UN intervenes, then all of a sudden everybody else intervenes. That might cause more problems than give solutions. Why I say that is because I think this month marks the anniversary of seventh year anniversary since the Syrian crisis. which has the US, Russia, Turkey, everybody came, PKK, Kurdish, and they all intervened in one thing, and the crisis has never stopped. So if we're going to intervene in southern Cameroon, we need one unilateral action to be taken. And that one is get rid of Paul Biya and everybody around Paul Biya. Give him, put pressure and sanctions on him, get rid of him, then clean up the system in Cameroon itself. However, from my reading and from my viewing of the situation in southern Cameroon, I think the people of southern Cameroon have endured so much in the past year or so that I don't see them ever, no matter how the redemption strategy or the healing that may be applied when Paul Biya, because I'm very hopeful, when Paul Biya gets off power, I don't think the people, it will require quite a miracle to get these people back in terms of trauma healing and everything. So I keep repeating, I just hope 2 years from now, all I see is Ambazonia versus Biafra trying to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you respond to that. Someone here has made a comment and said France, which is a veto member in the United Nations Security Council, cannot, of course, vote or cannot support any bid to issue any sanctions or even to intervene in as far as the crisis or genocide in Cameroon is concerned. And they're worried. They're saying these are actually sympathizers of Paul Biya administration or regime. It's, according to them, is nearly impossible for them to sanction or even issue such kind of sanctions. But again, let me ask you this direct question. How possible is it to issue sanctions, therefore, or is it time to issue sanctions against Paul Biya's administration? And as you respond to that, should the UN then intervene at this moment?
Right. First of all, I think before the UN intervenes, we need to see what other African regional bodies are doing about it. We need to hear them speak louder. We need to hear them shout to try and tell the world what is happening in the rest of the African continent, because it would be very unfortunate if the UN tries to come in and the African Union is doing nothing about it, or is not saying anything as to what is happening in South Cameroon. So I think, first of all, let the African Union talk, because it has the mandate of overseeing what is happening on the African continent. So before actually we go to the UN, I think it would be very important to see what the AU can do or what it is doing, as well as maybe the ECOWAS and other regional bodies in that side of southern Cameroon. So I think it's a good idea to have the UN, of course, try and come in. But of course, let us not have that mentality of always waiting for the international body to come to our rescue when we have put these organizations in place so that they can be able to speak for us. And the issue of the other issue of sanctions, yeah, that would work, but of course, maybe to need careful. Someone to tread carefully when issuing those sanctions. Probably the sanctions will be directed to Paul Biya and his administration, rather than having sanctions on the whole of Cameroon, because I think that would have dire consequences on maybe the economy of that country. But I don't think we have reached that level, according to the international organization and the Western nations, that now we need to have sanctions. They feel like the threat level is still low. There's nothing big that warrants sanctions so far in Cameroon. So it could be of it's a good opinion, but I don't see it being implemented anytime soon, sadly.
And if it has, then there has to be a clear balance.
Yes.
Well, Mackenzie, you've heard from some of the one of our viewers here is saying that when you look at the GDP, about 65% of the GDP, that is gross domestic product in Cameroon, mostly comes from the southern Cameroon. That's from the Ambazonia region. Unfortunately, they feel like they're the people who are so poor, the people who have been disenfranchised, the people who have been marginalized, people who do not get the basic of services in that particular region. Let me ask this question, and I will start with Babu Biko. Do you suppose if Paul Biya's administration would have tried to address some of these things, for example, ensuring that there are basic services, there's actually internet, children are going to school, there's no genocide, there's no killing. I mean, you've opened up freedom, voice of dissent, and all that. Will we be seeing this agitation today? Is it just more of like having the Ambazonia Republic, or is it because of the feeling of being marginalized, the feeling of being tortured? The genocide that is happening in southern Cameroon is what is informing this agitation and crusade for a restoration of the Ambazonia Republic.
First of all, the most ironic thing, I think, first of all, is that most of the people who feel marginalized and who are leading secession movements all across the world are people who are actually contributing the most to the development of their nation. Yeah. You've talked about southern Cameroon right there. Biafra also contributes, I think, the largest chunk in the Nigerian economy. And Catalonia in Spain was also one of the biggest contributors economically to the growth of Spain. So it's really ironic that these leaders cannot pay them back in a certain manner. Pay them back, build them infrastructure, let them feel the impact of the 65% that they contribute to the economy. However, if people are in one country and feel like they're in another country, they're going to push to get their own country. You understand? They're going to agitate to get their own rights and freedoms. If I'm always contributing and to an investment and I'm not getting anything in return, if I contribute to an investment and you come back and insult me, and you come back and beat me, and you come back and torture me, and you come back and kill me, I'm going to feel the need to walk away from that investment. And the people of southern Cameroon are in a state where now they think they have tried their best to be part of Cameroon, but it's now time to walk away. What they're feeling, you can't live in a country where the rest of Africa actually looks at Cameroon from a very proud angle. You look at them winning the football matches and you're like, this is where Harambee Stars, as Kenyans, are like, this is where Harambee Stars needs to be. Yeah. But if you look at the number of players in the Cameroon team, again, most of them come from southern Cameroon, which again speaks volumes. So if leaders could start addressing and could start opening up, because Paul Biya is a person who, and I keep repeating this, one of the things that he did that showed you he doesn't like dissent is the fact that his own ministers need to bow to him. And you need to keep a distance when greeting. A lot of Africans took that as a joke. You understand? Yeah. But that is something that says a lot about a human being. So if he does that with his ministers, what is he going to do with somebody who comes and dissents and says, you know what, I do not like? And that is why I say across Kenya, we're actually happy some of us can actually joke and make fun of the president and tag him with his official handle, and nothing happens to you. Yeah. Yes.
Mackenzie, is it this aspect of marginalization, the feeling that these people have been left out, they are not benefiting from the resources that come from their place? Like you've heard, they are the most hardworking. The highest percentage of GDP actually comes from Ambazonia. Is it what is informing what we are seeing today in the southern Cameroon or in Cameroon? Or do you simply feel like it is the agitation for a restoration of the republic?
I think maybe she's a contributor. The feeling of marginalization has just maybe added fuel to the fire of them wanting their own republic, because many a times you have heard them saying that they don't get, there's no equal share of resources as it's been done on the other parts of Cameroon. So the issue of marginalization is there, and I think it is really pushed the agenda of maybe secession, because they feel like then if the government does not value us, or it does not maybe feel like we are important, then maybe it's better if we get away from the rest of the country. So the issue of marginalization is there, and it is a big factor in the issues that the southern Cameroonians are putting forward.
Okay, very lastly, now as we wind up almost as we wind up the program, I just want to hear from my panel about the election which is due, I think, in October this year, general election in Cameroon. I'll start with you, Biko. Do you suppose now that with this election, should it be incorporated, the referendum, the question of deciding whether really the Ambazonian should be, the republic should be restored or not, should it be part of this election?
I think it should come before. I honestly think that Southern Cameroons, if they're going to get a referendum, they should get a referendum before the general election. Because my feeling from the sentiments that I'm hearing, they will not want to vote for a general election in a combined Cameroon. So I would rather they get a referendum. But as it is, that's not happening from the way things are going. And secondly, in the general election itself, if Paul Biya is still there with his cronies, with the same system,
still manipulate.
Yeah, why don't you just give him and let the people of Cameroon just sit at home and say Paul Biya is the president and move on,
And
because he's
like
not
Paul
going to
Biya
lose
is not
it.
interested in seeing these people actually move away, or actually is not going to implement the divorce
No,
the request for appeal. Can we allow him to oversee the process? Of course, you're saying he's in control of the system.
No,
or is it time then the UN should come and
precisely,
oversee the process?
and this is where the way the UN suggested they want to hold Kenyan election. Let them go suggest that to Southern Cameroon. Let them hold that election and oversee it and make sure it's quote unquote free and fair. Because as it is, if Paul Biya oversees the whole election, again, what people don't get, especially in dictatorships, is the elections are not determined by the people who vote. It's determined by the people who count. So if Paul Biya still has the people who count in his pockets, there's nothing the people of Ambazonia will do.
Let me hear from Esther Mackenzie.
All right, I think I like the reasoning of Babu Biko that maybe if there was to be a referendum, it has to come before the election, because as things stand, you're not even sure whether the Southern Cameroonians will want to participate in the upcoming election. Of course, the fact that maybe it's Paul Biya who will be still in power or will going to get power once again, then there will be no need of having that referendum, because they are going to, of course, change these things, corrupt the whole system, and ensure that they still remain in power. So it's a dicey matter for the Southern Cameroonians on the way to approach it. And of course, we don't know whether the country is also prepared to conduct a referendum on top of that.
Well, whether or not the country is prepared to have the referendum, and that's why you see, because a suggestion is that probably we should have this divorce before the election. And how possible that is going to be, because again, you know, Paul Biya is the one who is calling the shots in Cameroon. He might as well go the way of Kabila in DR Congo, who says there's no money.
Exactly.
And probably he will end up in saying, let's not have this referendum because there's no money, there are no resources, and also probably time to conduct the referendum. But again, the agitation continues. The crusade to have a restoration of the Ambazonia Republic continues, especially from the Southern Cameroonians. Most of them continue to pour in here, thick and fast. So many comments. Let me just go through some of them. There's so many of you who've sent in your views as regards to that topic of discussion this afternoon, as regards to the genocide, the killing, and the atrocities being committed or meted on the innocent civilians that is in the Southern Cameroon. Let me begin with Henry. Gilbert says, when angry people visit a home for a problem with twisted faces and they are welcome with expensive gifts, and big envelopes sent off with handshakes, what do we expect? The UN and the Commonwealth are sinners. I think basically what this viewer is trying to say is that the people we are calling upon to intervene have also been compromised to a certain extent. Very big problem there. Jennifer DK says, we will never forget you. Punchline Africa TV, keep going. Our independence is non-negotiable. Ben Terence says, why conduct an election that the result is at hand, which means it's definite. Probably Paul Biya is going to make it again. John Simao Morgan says, Nigerian knows our history from day one, and they know how we have suffered from the hands of La Republique de Cameroon. Even as we speak, thousands of Southern Cameroonians are in Nigeria as refugees. Very unfortunate. How can the Nigeria government be so wicked to arrest our leaders? What is happening with Southern Cameroonians is totally unacceptable. Then we have Brooklyn Pepsi says, we are gone for good. Jennifer DK once more says, rainy season is here. And then we have, who else says, let me go through this comment. Southern Kenneth Kate says, Southern Cameroons want their own republic because they had been a separate territory from French Cameroon. Before joining French Cameroon, they had their own parliament, government, ministers, house of chiefs, etc. Britain lied to the UN that Southern Cameroons cannot be a viable state, and that we were given the choice of Nigeria or Cameroon. And so that is why they are still as part and parcel of Cameroon by default, because of what they believe was actually a lie by the Cameroon government. And that is where we wrap up Africa Matters this afternoon. Thank you so much for being part and parcel of this conversation. I want to thank most of you who have, of course, taken an effort to send us your views and comments on our program this afternoon. And more so to my panel, Babu Biko and Esther Mackenzie. Let me just go through some of the points that you made, very pertinent. You say Biya can be dealt with if we choose. It's not untouchable.
Yeah.
I mean, the panel agrees. They equally say that extreme dependence has compromised our actions. And that is why today we cannot even hold an election because we still expect some donation of funding from the international community, the same people we actually blaming for the so many atrocities that are happening on us. Time to issue sanctions, that is according to Esther Mackenzie, but she goes ahead and said it should be balanced. It should not be a blanket sanction. It should target Biya and his regime. I think that is what the panel agrees. And at this particular time, they also say the UN has to intervene. The elections in Cameroon are due in October this year. What is going to be the choice of the people of Cameroon? Should a referendum or a question for a restoration of Ambazonia be included in that election so that these people can determine really whether they want to detach or a restoration of the republic? Thank you once more. My name is Samuel Tawish. Until next time, Masanga Africa Perspective is coming next. Continue watching. Goodbye.
What we want is for France to back off. They should leave our own system. We have a proper means to organize our educational system. We have proper means of our health system. It's a time for freedom. They colonized us, and now is the time. We were mental slaves, but now is the time we are spiritually positive. And the fight is bigger than they can think. The fight is bigger than they can think. Now is the time.
We want to take this show very seriously about Masanga Africa Perspective. It's the only show that we speak with frankness, with very calculative, we are decisive, we are very, what can I tell you? Masanga Africa Perspective, therefore, wants to show the people of Africa that we cannot keep quiet about the ills of foreign instigated chaos. Cameroon is a colony of the French. The French have maintained grip on Cameroon.
Freedom now. Freedom now. Southern Cameroonians who are the owners of this land understand it. And that is why the clamor now is for nothing but independence.
And I want you Cameroonians, wherever you are now, come back. I've come back on your subject. I have done it in Gambia. Mr. Adama Barrow is ruling, is leading, although he's now leaning more of the French advice. He will be overthrown very soon because he has forgotten where he came from. It is our television station that gave the Gambians the will to speak, the will to talk, the will to do everything in the world. Yaya Jammeh had closed everything for them, opened the channels for them. Unlike the Biafran issue, which we know is pumped in by fuel, oil. Actually, this one also is oil, because the southern part is the one that produces more oil than, you see how God makes things very difficult. You see, the place that are minority, the southern part, where Biya wants so much, is where the black gold is. So
Welcome Welcome to Multiple Solutions Limited, your one-stop shop for all your air operation services. We are a fully licensed air operator in Kenya that undertakes clearing and forwarding of cargo in and out of the East African corridor.
I'm Subramaniam. I'm the Director Strategy for Multiple Solutions Limited, which is part of Multiple Group of companies. We have Multiple Group is the largest private logistics service provider in East and Central Africa region. We have recently started air cargo operation with our Boeing 737-200 freighter and Boeing 737-300 freighter based out of Jomo Kenyatta Airport, Nairobi.
Our headquarters are in Mombasa. We have a regional office in Nairobi. We also have other branches in Kampala, Uganda, Juba in South Sudan, Singapore, and at all interconnecting borders. With our latest cargo plane, Boeing B737-200 series aircraft, which is a fully cargo outfit with a capacity of carrying up to 15 tons, we will give you a world-class, personalized and timely experience in delivery of goods from one point to the other. We specialize in an executive service for customers requiring high levels of reliability, comfort and safety when traveling around Africa.
We are authorized air operator and we are operate scheduled flights, cargo flights to Middle East countries and also East and Central African regions. We have scheduled flights operating out of Jomo Kenyatta to Ras Al Khaimah, Muscat, Salalah, Fujairah and Bahrain. For our Mogadishu business, we have established partnership with Golden Gate Cargo Services, who do consolidation services for us out of Jomo Kenyatta Airport as well as Fujairah in Middle East.
The reason for you to choose Multiple Solutions Limited is because you have a one-stop shop. What does that mean? Is that we can be able to give you enterprise solutions. You want us to do the documentation for you. We have a division that can be able to do that. You want us to do the warehousing part for you, we have a division that does that. You want to combine different aspects of business, especially if you want to do sea to air. You want to bring your cargo to Mombasa and then airlift it to Juba. We can be able to offer you that solution. So what we do best at Multiple Solution is to tailor make solutions for you that accommodates your needs.
Multiple Solutions Limited, your logistics partner of first choice.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.